What was I don't know, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, what was that other video you mentioned? One uh, by Professor White, and then you mentioned another one.
It's Ken Fish. If you go to the YouTube message, I can paste it in the chat if you want to pick that up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then another thing, you said that the stories and so forth are very absorbing. So would there be some danger in studying them or reading about them, or I don't know how to phrase this, but are we on thin ice when we're studying it, or
Can you come again? I just pasted that in the chat.
you said that these stories about Tammuz and all these people are very absorbing.
Correct.
So, is there some danger in reading about them, or should
No,
we?
no. What I mean was the pagan systems were so intricately uh, fabricated, I can say. Do you know labyrinth? Do you have an idea of the word labyrinth? Labyrinth,
No.
labyrinth is once you enter into that, there are several doors and several pathways. So it's almost impossible to come back from where you entered. So you will be lost in a labyrinth. Like pyramids are supposed to be like labyrinths. What they do is they put the dead body of Pharaoh and all his slave girls with food sufficient for a few weeks or few months. Once the food is done, consumed, then they are no longer have anything left to survive. But if they find the way out, they are free. But they design the inside of the pyramid such a way it's a labyrinth. You go through several passages and you end up at same place. You would never find a way to actually come outside of pyramid. Theoretically, there is a way, but practically you don't find it. So the pagan cultures, all this worship system is woven such a way that when you begin to embrace, it has attraction to your fleshly desires. So and then you don't find a way out to come out of that because they engage you, they entertain you, they they absorb you. In that context, I said. So when we come to the spiritual reality for us, you and me as Christians, the false doctrine. The false doctrine brings a false system of worship. So that false doctrine would be so absorbing, entertaining and engaging and absorbing you. So that is the danger, I think. I mean, am I
And
making sense?
we'd want to avoid that.
Avoid that is stay close to God in your prayers and stay close to the Bible. Instructions, teachings of Jesus Christ, fundamental, and teachings of apostles, and warning of prophets. All these things. If you stay close to what happens is when we don't stay close to Bible or prayer, our defenses would come down. You are no longer alert and vigilant. You are subjected to some kind of numbness, some kind of drowsiness. That's when the enemy comes with the bag of false doctrine. That can come from your pastor or minister or deacon or your close friend who is associate for the last 3 or 4 decades. It doesn't matter. It can come from any quarter if you are not doing your Bible studies and prayers on regular basis. It's so much we are in a spiritual warfare. Most people don't understand this, but you should be asking God for discernment. How do you know? Discernment is so much important for us now. You can easily be tripped off by enemy. But that makes sense when I say these pagan systems. I see very little chance for us now to go and worship Tammuz. We know Tammuz is a lie, but it's equivalent to spiritual danger. That is real danger for us. You can come back, like let's go to others who are waiting. Let's go to Gaileen.
Hi,
I
I have to move my brother's noisy. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I see so much. You already focused on the danger of the doctrines, or yeah. So that's so important nowadays. I'm trying to um relate it to what is happening in the Philippine setting. And it's so true that it's like we have a compass that is the Bible, and just 1 degree off from the start could lead us so far away already if we don't personally keep ourselves on the right track with the Bible. And so it's so much happening even in the smaller churches. That's why I'm in another group that's called Cry of the Bride. And we're trying to invite pastors because after the seminary, they don't have much feeding after, and they go tangent already. And it's so sad to hear, even here in the latest news I have. Before it was just okay, the pastor with the sexual immorality, but what's also so sad is there's a Muslim that almost became accepting Christ as his Lord and Savior, but this pastor's idol was greed, is greed, and it's now also um, accusing the Muslim of some loaning 5 million pesos. So I'm going, oh my goodness, you're supposed to be the pastor. You're supposed to know. And Muslims here are saying, you carry the name of your God Christ, and yet you defile him this way. And they're saying, like, I heard this from somebody else, they're saying, Christ, at least as Muslim, we don't carry the name of Allah and defile his name. That's how they're showing it. But it's such a sad thing that Christians have gone, especially the ones who are supposed to lead the flock, or at least assistant leading the flock, and now they're doing this. So, and then what you're when you were saying about the first lesson about the hidden leaders, they're political leaders as well as religious leaders. And to the end, when the women are weeping, it's all out in the public now. It's no holds bar, and that's like the present age. I could relate it to sports in London or England. Then they had the Olympics with the bull, and they were having so Olympics itself I think it's very much something like Tammuz. And then the sports here in the Philippines, it's basketball and boxing. So now I'm seeing it clearer where one spends more time and it's distracting us from what the Lord wants. So and then yesterday I was with a group, a tribal group, and they had some the message is supposed to be thanking God. God, their word is Ginoo, which means God. And now that you explained it to me, they're starting to veer off. And I was wondering, okay, if this is to thank God for us tribal people to thank God, I didn't understand most of the language because it's another language I'm trying to learn. But if I go out now, I cannot influence them to use this thanking God, to really thank God in the proper way. Maybe if they don't change, I'm out. So I'll try to influence them to thank God. And I'm just analyzing while you were talking. I'm going, oh my goodness. And these are mostly seniors. And where's God in this? I didn't understand. So I don't know yet. Or maybe it could be a start if the Lord wills that we do have songs thanking God and not just entertainment, which just I think what happened, there was some singing and dancing and some ceremonies and uh, elevating a datu, that's a form of chieftain in the tribal group. So right now, I think there's a possibility of God's influence using me in that area. So for now, till December, I may be around. But then if you said, come out of her, um, I'm not in there. I'm not a member yet because I can't speak it fluently. So I could be just like a shadow afterwards. But for now, if the Lord allows me to be an influence to focus on really giving thanks and not just singing and dancing and even sexual immorality, because you said even jokes. I'm going, oh, they have jokes and they are seniors and they're supposed to be Christians. So it is the world. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your comment, Kylene. Let's go to Alan.
I was thinking about when you were talking about the month of Tammuz in the Hebrew calendar. There is now an actual month. I don't recall any place in Scripture.
You're muted, Alan.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about the name of the month, Tammuz. Now, I think that all the names of months were derived from men and not from Scripture. Because in the Bible, he always says, "This shall be the beginning of months for you," or in the seventh month you shall thus and such. But just like the days of the week, they weren't given names by God, but people gave them these pagan names, such as Thursday is Thor's day, right?
Yeah.
Every day of the week, and January is Janus. And so everything that's named, the 7 days, the 12 months, and the Hebrew calendar months were not derived from a holy source. So I would imagine that's why they have Tammuz as one of the names of a month.
Yeah, that's right. At least they are aware of Tammuz and they're in contact with Tammuz cult.
Yeah.
So that's what probably led that penetrate even into the temple.
So if we go over to 1 Samuel in chapter 2, we see something that you brought to mind when you were talking about these orgies, and it's Eli's sons. In 1 Samuel 2:22, you want me to read it?
Second, I'm trying to share. Yeah, all the restrictions. Where shall we go? First Samuel?
Yeah, 1 Samuel chapter 2.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Verse 22. As we read down here. Now Eli was very old and heard that his sons did unto all Israel how they lay with the women that assembled at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. He said unto them, why do you do such things? I've heard of your evil dealings by all this people. Nay, my sons, for it is no good report that I hear you make the Lord's people to transgress. So having done this, it says here at the door of the tabernacle, it smells like that same kind of thing that you were talking about with the orgies at the temple.
Very
And we all
interesting. Yeah.
and we all remember that in Corinth, that was one of the prostitutes at the temple was one of the practices in the city of Corinth, and probably throughout, I don't know, maybe all of Asia Minor and all of Babylon. But it has directly to do with these women at the temple, this idea that there's a collection of women weeping for Tammuz. In the article that I have here, it says that they did it in the morning, that Tammuz was also the goddess of vegetation, and they're weeping to bring him back because the vegetation is dried out in the summer. And they want the rains to come, and they want Tammuz to come back. It says here, he was shown, they were doing this to the image of a dead Tammuz in the morning hours, worship. And this was believed to resurrect Tammuz, promising renewal of the earth's vegetation. So isn't it an abomination then to rely not on our maker for the vegetation, but to cry out and to call out for someone else to provide our sustenance? That the source of what keeps us alive is something else, not our Father, not Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
There is a different source of life, of what keeps us alive, spiritually alive. By transference, we go over to that, right? But I don't know if we can conclusively say that, but in today's world, we have worshipers that are not so much reliant on the Father and the Son for their continued spiritual health, but perhaps on other things that are not the true source.
So what you're saying, if I may restate what you just said, when there are failures difficulties, we attribute to death of Tammuz. Or when we have great things, great accomplishments, we also can attribute things to some spiritual construct called Tammuz, which is not the true God. So your reasoning is messed up. Your explanation of your difficulties as well as great things, you're attributing to somebody other than God. Is this possible in our churches among Christians?
Well, one of the things that gets called out in the book of Isaiah is that they worship the work of their hands. I think Revelation talks about that too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so what is the work of our hands doing? It's providing the income that we can have to pay our bills and to buy food and to live. But then we don't attribute the prosperity to our Father, but we attribute it to our own doing, the work of our hands. So we have worship of the work of our hands because we're self-reliant.
Interesting. Very interesting. So this hand is Tammuz now.
Yeah.
So this Tammuz is the reason for your failures or for your success. It's no longer God. So this is a big slippage. You don't need to find Tammuz somewhere else. It can be your just hand. So you
Or
can
your intellect.
Yeah,
Your intellect.
Yeah. Isn't it fascinating? I think that's a great point you put forth, Alan. So these things really have to be thought over. You have to think through how these could translate into us. Thank you. And morning time, morning worship, I studied something about that regarding Tammuz. Tammuz is associated with Easter in big way. What happened? I know Easter is practiced by many Christians as resurrection of Jesus Christ. That should be fine as long as they think Jesus Christ. But the real story behind Easter, most people do not know. Most Christians are not aware. They have no clue that it is actually Tammuz resurrection. So what happens was the morning sunrise is on Easter day is actually, they say it comes from morning weeping for Tammuz. And about 100 years ago in US, on the Easter day morning, there is a big procession in New York City on 25th Avenue. That is the street. Only woman would be in this parade, and they dress up in certain way and with certain hats, and they will go in a long procession, only woman, on the Easter day in the morning in New York, and that's very much in sync with woman standing up or woman worshipping or woman weeping for Tammuz. If you connect the dots, there is no hard evidence. I thought I would mention this in the discussion. Any other insight, contribution?
Another thing I would like to say is you were using some words to describe. You were saying it's entertaining, and it's I forget what else you said. I would like to add two words. It's mesmerizing.
That's true.
And it's captivating. Those two words, I think, help us understand, like when you see the Christmas lights and the tinsel and the decorations, it is mesmerizing. and it's captivating and it's entertaining, like you said. But it has a certain emotional power and appeal to the eye, right? The sight of the eyes, right? The pride of life, all that. People are very prideful in their displays of lights. There's competitions in neighborhoods of who's going to have the greatest, most extravagant lighting display.
Yeah.
And there's an emotional content that captivates people, mesmerizes. It's all part of the package.
I said it's entertaining, engaging, and absorbing.
Yeah.
So you added two words, and ecstasy. What did you say? Two words?
It's mesmerizing and
Mesmerizing.
captivating.
Captivating.
And it has emotional appeal.
Sure it does. Yeah. Very
So
interesting.
it's not no wonder that the unwary person is taken in that direction. If they're completely unaware, it's natural to be drawn in.
Yes, Rod, you have something to say? You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sort of describing what people would say is a really good sermon. It was mesmerizing. It was captivating.
Yeah. Interesting comment. You know, in Garden of Eden, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field that the Lord God created. The word for serpent is Nahash. Nahash is primary meaning is the snake, but it has secondary and tertiary meanings. That range is ecstasy and stupefy and fascinate. See, Nahash has so wider semantic range in Hebrew, and I believe all of them describe devil. So Alan's phrase mesmerize is also in Nahash. So what do you see in Tammuz and worship of Tammuz? Do you see some kind of Satan? You are muted, you can unmute.
Satan appears as an angel of light, and if we're watching the sunrise and we believe we're honoring God, we don't know that we're not honoring him because we see this appearance of the new morning light, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus Christ says, I am the bright and morning star.
Yeah.
So naturally, then it must mean the sunrise in the morning is a kind of a representative of the Christ. So it's easy to make that jump, to jump over to an illicit bright and morning star, one that appears as an angel of light. If you're not looking for it. So nobody really instructed us to go wait for the sunrise and then to have a worship service as the sun rises over the horizon. That's a manufactured idea.
Oh, definitely, it's not coming from scriptures. It is tradition. But what I meant to say was most Christians who do who observe Easter have no clue about this background of the festival. So they're sincere. They really think that they're doing for Christ and his resurrection. And they
Yeah.
weep on Friday, Good Friday, for he was crucified. And they don't have any clue about any pagan things behind them. So if they are clueless, I think they fall in that category. There is an abomination, but they are not seeing yet. Look at the wording of Christ. When Christ said, when you see the abomination, then flee. When you see. That means when God enables your eyes and ears, then you see. There's a second way is, he who readeth, understand. Read what? He said specifically Daniel. So if you go to Daniel, book of Daniel, there are 3 places he mentions about abomination, desolation. So one way to be vigilant is to read Daniel and read the prophecies and ask God for discernment. Perhaps you would see these defilements. So we should be doing our homework that is expected. But if people are not seeing these things, they are sincere, probably they are in a state that they are not yet seeing the abomination for them to flee. So the wording is so important. Whenever you see, or when you see, when you understand the abomination, the word see in Greek can be translated as understand or perceive or discern. It has a wider semantic range. It's not physically seeing with your eyes. It's not a physical abomination, desolation. It's a spiritual concept. So you have to understand and see through. That's the idea. Yes, Marlene. Let's go to Marlene.
You talked about the sighing and crying for the abominations.
Yes.
And I've thought of the sighing and crying would be for all of humanity and all the things going on there. But reading about this and listening to you tonight, it talks about for those in Jerusalem, the sighing and the crying. So is it what you're seeing, what's going on with the churches, God's people, versus the world, all of humanity that you sigh and cry for?
Jerusalem is a code word. It's a semeion for church. So don't go to the city in Middle East. That's a semeion. So it's a symbol of us.
Right. So spiritually, are you praying, are you sighing and crying for God's people that have turned away and
Correct.
doing the abominable things rather than people that don't understand and they're not called, you're not necessarily crying and sighing for them?
No, because world already has abominations. There is no mystery about that. But you're mourning for things in Jerusalem. We are New Jerusalem. So within the God's people, they're practicing it. So you're not happy or you're not rejoicing because they are subjected to judgment. You are escaping. While you are fleeing or before you are fleeing, it's always should break your heart when a Christian goes astray. The mourning and sighing and crying is righteousness in the eyes of God. And that's why you have that verse. Even the whole sealing of God's people before the Great Tribulation, that's actually that we would go there. So these guys who are sighing and crying in Jerusalem, they are marked on their foreheads with this ink. One of the 6 men 6 men with axes, they would come. One of them is their leader. He has a bottle of ink and he has some pen-like thing. He will dip the ink and he will put it on the foreheads of these people who are sighing and crying for the abominations that are committed in the temple as well as Jerusalem, which is an illusion for us, church. And we are marked not with physical ink, but with the name of our Father written on their foreheads. We are becoming 144,000 who are crying and sighing for the abominations that are committed among our churches and our congregations, our Zoom rooms, our small fellowships, independent churches, mega churches, corporate churches, every group that is called Christian, because they have a name of Christ, then you are also sighing and crying, perhaps praying for them. Only those people are identified for the marking with ink. And then when the slaughter begins in Ezekiel chapter 9 and 10, the slaughter begins, God explicitly tells them, don't touch those people whom we have marked with the ink. You see exactly same phrase in Revelation 14 and Revelation 7. And do not touch those people who are sealed. But all other people, great tribulation would be unfolded. It's a good question. Am I even remotely answering your question, or?
Oh, yeah, you are. And what it's interesting is the last situation where we left, they're looking at us and sighing and crying, so to speak, because they think we're missing out on something, and we're looking at them thinking that they're missing out. So it's interesting how you could be sighing and crying, but what side are you on? It's like, are you on the right side, sighing, crying for the right things? Anyway, that's interesting. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. That's also a semyon. Sighing and crying is not, you're not literally sighing and literally crying with tears coming down. It's a choice that you make, that you're concerned for them. You care for them. You're praying. You try to help them if wherever it is possible, wherever your arm can reach to them, and you try everything you can. You have to
Right.
break the semyon.
Right.
So that is very, very expected. If you go through Ezekiel, that's what God is really looking for. Do you care for these people that are perishing? Isn't it? I mean, you don't have a verse, thou shalt surely care for people who are perishing. There's no direct commandment, either from Jesus or from anywhere, but that is expected of Christians. You have to understand the instructions in between the lines. That's where the discernment comes. Anyway, we'll go to Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hello. I was listening and thinking about things that might be related to what you're talking about here, and how people get carried away with some of the things that might have been changed over to pagan worship of various things. And I thought of the book The Divine Comedy by Dante. He was an Italian, and he wrote this book about afterlife where people are walking through this area, which is hell, and they're seeing different things. Basically it starts with hell, then they go through purgatory, then they go to paradise, and these are all different things that they've actually incorporated into the Catholic religion, where you hear the term purgatory. I mean, that's where it comes from, and it's like there's nothing in the Bible about purgatory, and of course nothing about anything happening here as far as on an inferno. But the things that came from his book, which was a long poem, actually are turned into a worship of God, and they just it's supposed to be a comedy. It's the Divine Comedy, and they've taken it and used it as a cornerstone in the Catholic religion.
That's terrible. And people embrace that?
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
When I was in first grade, there was only 8 of us in the class, and I was the only Lutheran, and everybody else was Catholic. And it was interesting that they were talking about purgatory. So we'd have long discussions about what purgatory was, and I tried to find it in the Bible, and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I went to my Lutheran minister, and he didn't even know what. He said, "What's purgatory?" Asked him what purgatory is, and he said, "I don't know." He
Oh,
had no concept of
he,
it.
he doesn't know?
He didn't even know it. So the Lutherans didn't know what purgatory was, and the Catholics were preaching and teaching it. So it just shows you how the religions get started. They start off something and it could have a completely different base to it. And at any rate, it's just how things get started. Everybody started from when they were on the ark and they came out, and they were all started from one point at that time after the flood. So they all had a common knowledge, but it was all by their interpretation. And through the years, things have gone astray, as you might imagine.
It's true. Very true.
That's all.
Thank you. Now you have so many philosophies, paganisms now. Yeah, let's go to Buddy. Good evening, Buddy.
How you doing?
Hey, doing good, thanks.
Well, the scripture says the abomination that makes desolate. Well, there's a couple of questions that need to be asked. One, of course, is what is the abomination? And what is it that it makes desolate? What is it that this thing makes void? So here we are at the end of the age, and a new religion has come along, and you have this system that's put in place. And in my mind, the final stroke is when the entire world that is communicative comes to the point where this being or system says, all right, that old religion is gone, period. And if you worship this old God, you're going to die. So in my mind, there's something else going on here. I know many people have said, well, this has got to be the Pope or it's got to be somebody else, that is the abomination. I think the key is, what does this individual or system makes void throughout the world? And I think that is true Christianity, because at that time you have people that well, Revelation says, that the beast goes against those that are keeping the commandments. So that's the last vestige, in my mind, of true Christianity, of people worshiping the true God. Those are the last people on earth that have this particular religion that needs to be done away with. So anyway, just a thought, just something to muse on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I think the two kinds of issues we definitely face. I think you are going more along mark of the beast, where it is enforced. Once they are enforced, people who would yield to that enforcement would naturally be doing the abominations. That's the later phase. But the earlier phase, before the mark of the beast is enforced, you have these attractions. So the abominations can also come as attractions that would attract people, attract Christians. And then you fall for them, for that system. Once you enter into them, there is no way of coming out. These are very subtle, like humanism. You can't even begin to discern humanism, how that is anti-Christian. And sometimes they take a verse from Bible, a good righteous thing to do, then they blow it out of proportion. They overemphasize it and beat it so many times. You would be only focusing on that one aspect. Rest of the Bible, rest of the instructions, they take a back seat, or you would be almost like not aware of rest of the instructions. Focusing on one thing and only that thing, that's also another danger of these things. So either way, buddy, like either subtle attractions or the enforcement, as you mentioned, by one person or one system taking over. Anybody doing the old way would be killed. That's more fierce, and that really challenges our faith, if we really love God or not. I wonder, how do we prepare for that? Like, Bible is clear, those times would be coming. But good point. Good warning.
What?
Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, could you give me those scriptures again? You said Ezekiel 14, and then in Revelation.
The scriptures that deal with marking on the forehead.
Yeah.
Okay, that's easy to go. Let me share my screen. Are you seeing my screen? So
No, it's too small.
oh,
I've got it on my phone.
let me see if I can.
Okay, I can see it a little bit.
I'll give you the verse. You can see
Okay,
it
yeah.
on your screen. So first we will go to Ezekiel 8. Actually, I believe it is 9. Yeah. So here, Ezekiel 9, actually the chapter. To get the context, I would let you read the whole 9. Chapter 9, I will read few verses starting from verse 1. He cried also in mine ears with a loud voice, saying, cause them that have charge over the city. So God has already put some people in charge of Jerusalem, which is us Christians, to draw near, every man with his destroying weapon in his hand. So the destroying weapon is understood as an axe. And behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lies toward the north, because you will see the abominations towards north. So the judgment also comes from north. And every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. And one man among them was clothed with linen. This is understood as Christ, with writer's inkhorn by his side. So he has an inkhorn, some kind of ink and some kind of pen-like thing to dip in that ink. And they went in and stood beside the brazen altar. Brazen altar is the place where the animal sacrifices are done. The glory, verse 3, of God of Israel was gone up from cherub, and whereupon he was to the threshold of the house. So here God is leaving the temple. He's at the threshold. He's not in the Holy of Holies. And he called to the man clothed with linen, which had the writer's ink on. See the timing. God's glory is leaving. What does that tell us? The temple is getting desolate. Abomination first, 4 abominations. God is leaving. So the temple has become desolate. And now the judgment is about to come. Before the judgment comes, now God is instructing these agencies of judgment, the 6 men with slaughter weapons. Verse 4, and the Lord said unto them, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of the Jerusalem. This is the New Jerusalem, by the way. In Simeon, in the shadow, it is Old Jerusalem, but in spiritual reality, it is us, New Jerusalem. And then God is asking them to set a mark upon the foreheads of men that sigh and cry for all the abominations that are done in the midst thereof. In the midst thereof tells me that it is limited to Jerusalem and the temple. Verse 5, and the others, to the others, he said in mine hearing, go ye after him through the city and smite. Let not your eyes spare, neither have pity. So when the judgment is unleashed, no pity. Slay utterly old and young, both maids and little children and women, but come not near any man upon whom the mark is the mark, and begin at my sanctuary. Then they began at the Ancient of Men. So this is where we see the mark, and people who are marked. Where is the mark? Somewhere it should be on their forehead. If I remember correctly. Anyway, we can go to Revelation.
It's verse 4, what you just read, it was in verse 4.
Oh, verse 4. Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 9, verse 4. Go through the midst of this stream, set a mark upon the forehead. See, mark upon the foreheads of the men. Don't take men as males. The word men is like all human beings. So let's jump to Revelation. Let's go. I believe it is 14. If it is not 14, it is 7. Now here, verse 1, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads. In their foreheads. So 144,000 on their forehead is not the mark of ink. It is the name of the Father written on their foreheads. Okay. Now let's go to Revelation 7. It's pretty scattered. Now, Revelation 7, chapter 7, verse 1 is equivalent to 6 men with their slaughtering weapons. They're about to go into Jerusalem and destroy it. Here, this is equivalent scene. Verse 1, and after these things I saw 4 angels standing on the 4 corners of the earth, holding 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow upon the earth, nor on sea, nor on any tree. So here the judgment is beginning. And I saw another angel ascending from east. These are like trumpet judgments. These guys are ready to blow trumpets. But before they blow trumpets, the angel comes and asks them to stop and do something very interesting. And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. Here, not the ink in a bottle. That is Simeon. That is the shadow. In shadow, you have a bottle of ink. with some feather of a bird, probably, take the ink and put it physically on the foreheads. That's the semyon and that's the physical shadow. But here it is the seal of the living God. He has the seal of the living God. And he cried out with a loud voice to the four angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Isn't it fantastic parallel statement? Do not hurt the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. So they are sealed with the seal of the living God, which we understand from chapter 14 that the name of the Father, name is authority of the Father written on their foreheads. And you keep on going. Now come to the fifth trumpet. And the fifth angel, this is Revelation chapter 9. Fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fell from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit. This is Revelation chapter 9, verse 1. Yeah, key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and air were darkened by the reason of smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. Verse 4, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, nor any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. What a fantastic way Bible unfolds itself, unlocks itself. The same pattern here, you see the matching. So whoever have the seal on their foreheads, they are not hurt from the fifth trumpet onwards. But if you see these things, like these are like green thing, any tree, all these things are very symbolic. We call them semyon. And they all refer to people of God. So there will be sealing takes place before the judgments are unleashed on this world. Is that little bit helpful, Rod?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other comments, insight? Let me get some water.
While Tagore's gone, you guys come up with all kinds of great questions.
Yeah, those who are sealed on the foreheads are actually sighing and crying spiritually for the abominations of this church or perhaps the world. But I think world is already full of abominations, because there is a verse in New Testament that says the whole world lies in wickedness, poneras. So that's how the world is defined. Whole world lies in wickedness. So it's full of abominations. Anyways, there's no surprise. But something if you see in church among Christians, that is shocking. That requires a grief, sighing and crying on our part because we love the brethren. We don't just love the brethren random because there is no love without truth. So in truth we love and we want truth in them as well as in us. Because they are departing from truth and committing abominations, we grieve the whole connection. Yeah, Alan, go ahead.
And there's I think maybe we should hold off on my comments because you're going to be going over to Ezekiel 9 next time, right?
If you want, we can discuss a little bit ahead of time. That helps people to.
Oh, just the mention of the forehead. And
Let's go there. You want to go to 9, Ezekiel 9?
no, I'm in Revelation 14,
Okay.
14:9, and 17:5. So 14:9, you see there, the mark of the beast is also on the forehead.
Yeah.
So this, so this is also the forehead has some very actually it has biological meanings because it's the thought center where
Exactly.
I think it's problem solving is done in the forehead.
Yeah, it's a cognition, they say.
Yeah, other functions
Yeah.
are done in that section of the brain.
Yeah.
So since the mark of the beast is in the forehead, now go over to chapter 16. I'm sorry, 17:5. And you see also another mark on the forehead,
Yeah.
a name, not the seal of God name, but the seal of Babylon.
Seal of God is also name, right? Because in chapter 14, you see 144,000 on their forehead. Name of God the Father is written,
Yeah.
which is equivalent to seal. So pretty much same thing.
So when a
You're
great
right.
king, when a great king would seal an envelope or a package,
Mhm.
it would be the seal of his name on there, saying by the authority of this king.
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
So this is interesting that the mark of the beast and also the mark of Mystery Babylon is written on the forehead.
Yeah.
When a person sees your face,
Mhm.
the biggest space we have is our forehead.
Yeah.
So when we identify a person, if something is written on their forehead, if there's a symbol or a name, we will see it right away.
I mean, do you see it as a semyon or do you see physically something is written physically on physical foreheads?
No, no physical.
Because it's cognition. It's your computation, your math skill.
It's an orientation of your thinking. Like how
So
you're oriented, what you're fixated on, what you are attentive to.
so how you are processing, how you are perceiving, how you are computing, and how you are doing all these things just you mentioned, it can be done in two ways. Under the name of God or under the name of Mystery Babylon. So name means authority and instructions. So this can be done according to the will and the instructions of Jesus Christ, or you can do it according to the instructions of Babylon.
So if you spend an hour in a room with somebody, can you tell whose name is on their forehead?
It depends on level of discernment that was given to you as a gift. I know people can tell even when you don't open your mouth. They can see through. People have developed that level of discernment. They can see through. I don't even claim to have anywhere near that. But once you begin speaking, I tend to place you where you are in a very broad sense for me.
But
But
you get some
1 hour
signal.
time,
Yeah. Whatever comes out of the mouth should give you some indicators.
yeah, where you are, like how far you are away from truth, how nearer are you to the truth as defined by Jesus Christ. He is the center. He is the one who defines and demonstrates and describes this seal.
So from now on, when I meet Christians, I'm going to say, I can tell you have a name written on your forehead. I'm not going to tell you which name it is.
If they know these concepts, like Tom asked his Lutheran pastor about purgatory. He said, like, what's that? So if pastors are clueless, Christians would be more clueless about these concepts. The word mark of the beast, the word mark is very interesting word. Let's go there since you are asking questions.
Well, I thought you were going to get into this more maybe when you were in chapter 9. I didn't want to ruin it.
We can discuss that again, a little bit more details. So here, mark is charagma. Charagma, you can see here, charagma. Strong's 5480. It's a stamp. It's an imprint mark, a mark stamped on the forehead, the right hand as a badge of the followers of Antichrist. They are going into theology. The mark branded upon horses, a thing carved, sculptured, graven mark of an idolatrous images. So this charagma is more related to character. Charagma, it's like an iconos. So it has, the way it is used is the ownership first. You belong to me. Second thing, you reflect me. Third thing is exclusiveness. You don't belong to other. So the various force of the word, the usage of the word has different forces that are pushed with this mark. So that's what is imprinted into our higher spiritual mental processes. So I believe forehead is a semyon for your perceptions and processes, the spiritual engines, the non-physical engines that are within you, how they operate. So you have two categories of those engines. One is front set, and second is the back set. The front set of engines, they work when you interact with others, when you interact with. So this is, if we say Alan, what Alan now is your front set of engines that are interacting. But I can say this is what Alan is, always would be. Then we are talking about your back set of engines. The back set of engines are your permanent aspect of you. It's a permanent you. That the Bible calls it as cardia, that is heart. That set of engines, the back set. The front set, Bible calls nous in Greek, that is can translate it into English as mind. So the mind is front set, that they work in real time, the processing and sending out information. That's all. Front set of engines are mind, and the back set of engines are heart, but they interact with one another. The heart pushes things to mind, and mind also pushes things to heart. Heart is your permanent you, and mind is you now at this particular instant of time, if I'm making sense. This is very abstract language.
Yeah, in the present, like at this present moment.
Yeah. So God gives commandments, the spiritual instruction, both for the back set of engines and the front set. Where the back set would end and where the front set would begin, it's very difficult to demarcate. It's almost like a continuum. But the heart is more like a recesses of you, which you do not always understand or see its full aspects of that. But the front you begin to see, this is where you are more aware. So when God says certain things like repent is more asking about your front set. You do something. But the repentance of heart, God grants, because God has to work to change your heart. Back set is less accessible to you. Front set is more accessible to you. See, when you begin to see the demarcation, all the instructions become more clear. Like, it takes longer time to change the heart. But the mind, with readiness, you can change. Readiness, you are willing. But you are not able to change yourself, because yourself, the deeper you, is the inner set, the back set, we can call. So the mark here, if you see, it's revolving around the front set. That means your decisions, your selection, your choosing, and you want to stay. But that also comes from your heart. Heart is the seat of your will. It emanates from back set. But your heart can be changed from the mind also, your front set. So it's a bigger subject, but that's what the mark is, more on the frontal.
Okay. I accept.
Any other comments, contributions? Next time we will do 25 men turning their backs to God and turn their front to the east to worship the sun. So I want to I want to spend some time on the east, the direction east. It's a huge topic in Bible. God uses these directions. How the east he uses as a Simeon. So first I will explore Simeon behind the east, and then come to this abomination and explain in terms of what we learned from the Simeon. That's the action plan for the next presentation. That would end the 4 abominations. Then we would go to chapter 9 and go through the God leaving the temple. Then we will come to the judgment of the 6 axemen. That would complete the abomination desolation. Then Rita asked for 144,000. We will go to Revelation 4 and 7 chapters. Revelation 7 and Revelation 14. So we will do a little bit of study on who are 144,000. And then we will come back to 2 witnesses, back to Revelation. Revelation 11. Hope to come back to Revelation 11 sometime. Tie this all things to 2 witnesses.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Rita.
How are you?
I didn't want you guys to see me. I'm in my pajamas. Anyway, I do have a question.
Yep.
On the mark of the beast. You know, you hear all this technology talk about a chip being implanted in the wrist or the forehead, and you won't be able to buy and sell unless you have this chip. Do you see any connection to the mark of the beast with that?
Well, you can make a case for it, but the case probably would fail. The way charagma, the Greek word charagma, is used in scriptures, it's set of your internal non-physical engines are affected. And how the engines are run according to God's commandments or according to Babylon's instructions, that's where the battle is. This is the battlefield. This is the turf that is contended between the 2 parties. So the current level of technology, if you see the Google and Elon Musk, what they're doing is they're enhancing your capabilities by implanting chips. They enhance your memory, they enhance your processing power. You can actually see the screen in front of you, the monitor. You can see weather, you can see news, and you can also give your commands. They want to eliminate keyboard, so you can give instructions to computer directly through your thoughts. That's where the emerging technologies at that border frontier level they are operating. So far, at least the civilian technology, we don't see they're forcing you to decide one way or other. But if you come to black budget technologies, at least US military black budget technology, they have other like 5 or 6 generations ahead of civilian technology. So they have these implants, some kind of implants they put, and they actually take over your brain. And they can program it to do certain things. That's scary, but most of the conspiracy theories, they think that an active shooter in a mall, that's a military experiment. They take an unstable teenager who was given to drugs, or he's unstable. He doesn't have, to begin with, he doesn't have much control over his brain for various reasons. that's the right candidate for them to experiment. And they put something in his brain, and then they, through Wi-Fi, they communicate to this whatever implants, and the implants have interface with brain, and that can coerce the person to behave in certain way. So he becomes a robot like in their hands, whoever is handling that. So he walks through with his hidden AK-47 rifle. He goes into the mall and he reaches the place and he takes the gun out and he shoots a bunch of people, and the police would come and your commandos, whatever, like they come and kill him instantaneously. So that's what the pattern for most of the active shooters. But some cases there is a slippage. This guy shoots a bunch of people, but he comes up into his senses and he stops shooting and he raises his hands. So they don't kill him. They can't kill him because everybody is watching. Then he would be taken into prison and then we don't know what happens to him. So there's an evidence of certain cases where there's a slippage, where these things malfunctioned, or he regained control over his brain. And then he failed to obey the instructions that were given via Wi-Fi or whatever. So temporarily, they can gain control over your brain to get you do certain things. This is also hypnosis. Hypnosis is a very ancient, old way they can control your brain. But we are talking about more implants and electronic equipment and 5 generations ahead, black budgeted technologies. Even there, I don't know if they can make you decide to choose God or to choose Babylon. It's not a binary decision at one time. It's a lifetime of your lifestyle. It's a lifetime of choosing priorities, how you order your life in sync with Jesus Christ or sync with Babylon. So it's not an atomic one-time decision or one 45 minutes script that you would be doing because of these influences. Even hypnosis, would it be lifetime? It's for like a small finite amount of time. So even if you want to make a case, it's not quite satisfactory at this level, at least to me, that Mark is some kind of device that is implanted. It is spiritual, essentially. It is not physical. It's not material. It's not some wires and electricity. It's not even nanotechnology. It's non-physical, spiritual engines within you. That's where God is addressing. I don't think they have access to that because they don't see that. They don't believe that. Whatever they don't see, they don't believe. All these signs. So God has his own way of protecting, but you can be deceived to take the mark, or you can be terrorized, fear. Always there is a choice. You can reject mark of the beast, but you can decide to take the mark of the beast, right? So that's my thoughts. But Tom may have a different idea.
Thank you.
No, I just would like to say that you said scientists can't see that, and you have to understand that they can only work with and interface things that are there. They have to actually touch on the right neural I don't know what they call them.
Yeah.
The different things that they can fire off to
Yeah.
do what they need to do. So they're limited on what they can handle. and they can only deal with the physical. They can't touch the spiritual,
That's
which
the
is
point I'm trying
very
to.
good.
Thank you. There are two words we should be clear about when we the brain. Brain is physical. Inside the head, you have brain. Apart from brain, there is mind. Mind is non-physical. Nous is non-physical. The brain affects your mind, mind affects your brain. They are like this relationship, one laid over other. The spirit of the man is laid over the flesh. The flesh is brain. Brain consists of your cerebral cortex, neurons. It is divided into 5 or 6 lobes, regions. The frontal lobe is your cognition, your mathematical computations. They come in frontal lobe. The occipital lobe is in the back, which is for vision. And the Broca's area is for your hearing, understanding speech also. So there are different regions are for different functions, and your left hand side controls your right eye, right hand, right leg. So there are two hemispheres of the brain. Right controls the left side of the body, and left side controls the right side of the body. So if you open the skull top portion and see the brain, they look like two hemispheres, two things. They look like kidneys, you see. That's why God talks about the brain in terms of kidneys. God, you possessed my reins. I think when that statement comes in scriptures, I don't think he's possessing your brains. I think he's possessing your brains. But what is the interface between the brain and mind? That's a good subject. God said, I will write my laws on the fleshly tables of your heart. That's a very intriguing, profound statement. It's a fleshly tables of heart. It's not 100% spirit. It is tied up to flesh. Fleshly tables of heart. So you can get hold of this brain and try to affect this spirit. Or demon spirits can get hold of this spirit and tries to get into your flesh. The fleshly tables of heart makes it like a clay. We are shapeable and changeable because of these fleshly tables of heart. Heart is spirit. Fleshly tables are like your brain, your physical infrastructure. Let's go to Tom if he has more to contribute.
I was just thinking that it's somewhat like an automobile. The automobile is comparable to your brain, but you have to drive it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to sit in your garage unless you come out, turn it on, and decide to put it into reverse and back out of the garage. So it's sort of there. It's a physical entity that you can work with, and you can damage it in different places, and it's going to take a while for it to heal, but it can heal itself. The other thing that I was thinking of is the oh, it just slipped my mind now. Must be getting old.
That's because you have a
I
damaged
guess I'll
brain.
pass. Hey, I gotta wake my brain up, I guess. Hey, wake up now. I'll have to get another time. Sorry about that. If it comes back, I'll try and get back on.
No problem.
I told you how many times I did that this week, you wouldn't laugh.
I know it's horrible, isn't it?
Encouraging thing is it is
I know what
happening
it
on
was.
this side also.
It was the way we see. Our eyes actually see everything upside down because of the way it focuses.
Correct.
And we have to teach our mind to say, no, don't pay any attention to what you're looking at. it's really the other way around. It's upside down. So it's really interesting how we're made.
Your
Yeah, and the
optic,
brain,
your optic nerve reverses it.
and your brain is actually taking snapshots and it's
Correct.
blending them together, taking like what would be staccato and then filling in the blanks so it looks smooth.
That's the
Correct.
same way, that's the same way a movie film works.
Exactly.
Which it just runs it through, and then you just hit it, and it's going fast enough, you makes it all up together.
Yeah, it's faster than your optic neurons fire.
Mm-hmm.
So your optic neurons are cheated.
They're fooled.
Tagore, you were talking about how you've got the flesh, the heart, and a few years ago I had taken a class and it talked about how they could trace the line of thinking, your decision on how you're going to hit a baseball, for example, and they can trace that thought process. So you've got the brain thing going on, but yet they said we don't understand how that works because they can't see the mind part of it and how that works together. So it's interesting how you've got that physical and that spiritual thing going on.
Yeah, that's
Be
very right.
traced.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead. So the cerebral cortex is like a sheet. If you open the brain, you find a sheet that is folded up. If you open the sheet, there are two sheets actually, cortex, and they are connected by one cable bundle. They call it cerebral. I can't recall. So they're connected, but they also work independently. So when your thought process goes, they can track electricity going through different parts of the cortex. It's a very micro voltage, very small amounts of electricity. And they also did the reverse engineering. There's a guy called Penstock. So what he took was, he took a micro electrode and very small amount of energy. He started touching the cortex, cerebral cortex at different points. And as he is touching, people found sensations at different parts of the body. So he could map the whole external surface into different areas of cortex. And then he also mapped your memory. Your memory is also stored at certain places. So what he did was he touched at certain point, and the subject, who is the person who is on whose this experiment is going on, he could instantly recollect with all the clear, vivid details of an incident happened when he was 5 years old. 5 years old, he did something, but he doesn't remember anything of that now. But when he touched with this electrode, he remembers all that thing as if it happened 5 minutes ago, and he can give all the details, the color, shape, and how he. So what does that tell us? The whole thing is recorded in physical layer. But when the resurrection happens, the spirit comes back, and then you're raised from the dirt. So you are essentially a dirt being, and you are written in dirt, but with the help of the spiritual engines that God created as a part of you when He breathed into your nostrils the breath of life. I think that are spiritual engines within us. But if we are like fleshly tables of heart, that's a key statement, very profound statement God puts in His word for our benefit, so that we are not spirit beings, 100% spirit beings. We are also not 100% physical only beings. Because the psychologists, all these scientists believe that we are higher order mammals. We are evolved creatures. We are nothing but beasts. There is no non-physical in us. Everything has to be physical according to them. That's where they miss the whole mystery of the brain. That's why they become professing to be wise. They became fools. Even though they will become fools, it is written in past tense. They already became fools because they say, whoever says there is no God is a fool. Fool says there is no God in Proverbs. That's God's judgment on them. I studied the psychology and the physical aspects of psychology, the cerebral cortex, different experiments, and how the brain interacts with unknown things. They come almost, they try to explain in terms of the cerebral cortex and electricity, neurons firing, but they hit a dead end. They can't explain certain things. How a person decides, what causes him to decide this way or that way. Where is that stored? They couldn't find. Whether to take mark of the beast or whether to take God's mark, the decision, where is it stored? What makes him to decide? That's beyond them. So they give up that area. I think that's where the spirit in man that comes.
Yeah,
that's
I would agree. Yeah.
extensively covered in 1 Corinthians chapter 2. He talks about who knows the things of a man except for the spirit of man that is
There
in
you
him.
go.
And then he talks about the spirit of Christ also in contrast. So,
Yes, go ahead, Tom. I think a few of us can just
And
talk.
yeah, if you think about the brain, there are a lot of electrical impulses going through it, and it doesn't take too much electricity to fire them off in different ways. But I've been in some very high electromagnetic fields in substations and various other places. I took a tour of where they make the MRIs machines, and they have very high electric fields there as well. The whole idea is to hit the cells hard so that they all line up, and then as they slowly fall back into the way they used to be, they colorize them so that you can see that. And that's how you see the different parts of it. That's basically the theory of the MRIs. And if you walk through the factory and look at the screens on their computers, they have them off at an angle. So they actually literally put the machine, the computers themselves, they have it hang up with the monitors. They're off at an angle of about 45 degrees, and then they can read them straight because it has so much interference that they're getting from it. But our minds had no problem there, and yet you were exposed to that high electromagnetic fields, but it didn't do anything. We didn't think differently. We weren't walking around bumping into the walls or anything. So I find that interesting in that it's sort of somehow we are built to be able to withstand that. And I don't know why. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So I think that has a lot to do with the spirit that's in us as well.
Yeah. If you're all physical, then if you're going through high voltage close by or stronger electric field, some of your cerebral cortex functions should be disturbed or distracted. That doesn't happen. You're right. I think this is again a subject not researched. It is under researched. by Bible students. That's a mystery. God put some protections for us.
Yeah, it's really unusual because the electromagnetic pulse that you get from the, a nuclear explosion high in the atmosphere will certainly cause a high voltage spike that'll take everything out, and it propagates down wires and things like that. And yet it doesn't hurt us.
Yeah. How about people
We don't
struck
short
with
circuit.
lightning?
Same thing.
Same thing.
Unless we get in the way of lightning. Then
We have not yet to the point where we can understand the construction of how cells communicate with each other, how neurons actually conduct electricity. They're not metal. So here's electrical pulses going through organic material and effectually allowing a man to run across a field and catch a ball by jumping into the air. Do you know how many signals have to fire to cause him to run at the right speed and jump at the right moment and raise his hands? And his eyes are sending all the signals to the brain before any muscle can move. It's all visual, and it's a pretty complex operation going on there.
Incredible.
And not well understood.
Some people say you are a chemistry lab.
Yeah.
So many chemical reactions go. And some people say you are a living physics. All the laws of physics operate within you.
Yeah, because when the man is running, he's calculating the force of gravity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's determining how much muscle power is needed with each step.
Yeah.
So all these computations are going on simultaneously. And it's all being done by the visual.
Yeah.
It's exceedingly complex. Just to catch a ball. Just to catch a ball, that's it.
It comes from doing things before, though. It's a repetition. It's a muscle memory type of thing.
Yeah.
Where you know what's going to happen. It automatically flows.
Yeah.
And you look at the pattern, how all these synapses and everything that follow this path to be able to do things, and how that can be changed just by thinking. You can change that pattern that the synapse would follow, all those nerves. So when you change your thinking, you're changing your behavior.
And new connections get made. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're tying that in with scriptural things too, that, your line of thinking is positive compared to negative.
So when we talk about the spiritual development that God works in an individual's life, how do you see that as compared to a potter working on a vessel?
Well, a potter working on a vessel is a situation where, if it doesn't turn out right, he can take and smoosh it all up and start over again. Fortunately, God doesn't do that with us. And so I see that as kind of like the inverse of it. But glad he doesn't, and I hope he doesn't. I mean, what everything in the Bible tells us, which is the truth. We don't operate that way, but we do get molded, and and it's with his hands that he does it.
So when Tagore was talking earlier about the back of the brain being the more permanent you, that's part of what is being molded into a permanent person. So the potter is working on something that he's going to have a permanent product afterwards. When the masterpiece is completed by the master potter. He has exactly what he wanted. His plan was to produce a very specific vessel.
And that's when it's been fired, when it's finished. Put
Yeah,
it through the kiln, fire it, bring the heat up, put the
you are
glazing on.
frozen. You're right. That's the finishing part.
As far as I can tell, I have no glaze on me as of yet.
Good for
Well,
you.
are shiny though.
Good for you. Good for me. You know what? It's just a semyon. That was like potter and clay is a semyon.
Yeah, I know.
But within semyon, you have clues. Just like I'll have goosebumps when I go through these concepts from scriptures. But when he does it in real spiritual reality, he would be essentially working on spiritual engines, the spiritual you. Even though on the fleshly tables of heart he's working, he works and fashions your inner spirit, spiritual engines, but with your involvement, with your yielding, or his work is reduced when you are not yielding to the potter. That's a hidden, very deeply hidden in this beautiful semyon he presents in Jeremiah. Because there's one statement he makes, which is a devastating statement. The vessel is marred in his hands. How can a vessel be marred in the all-perfect, almighty God is actually fashioning as a potter? But he leaves us with a thought to ponder. How can a vessel be marred in the potter's hands? Then he made it again, perfect. Is it a capability question, or is it a pattern, prophetic pattern that's debated? If you see consistently, there's a consistent theme. The firsts would go bad and would be destroyed, and the seconds make it through. The first Adam is done. The second Adam is alive. So the firsts, there's a pattern all through, like different aspects, different domains. The first would go bad and be destroyed, and the seconds would take the place of first and make it live and thriving. So I tend to believe it's a prophetic statement. The first time when he made the vessel, it was marred in his hands, such that he has to make it again, second time.
Yeah. And he's talking to Israel.
Yeah, you can debate that again, but
The new Israel is not the genetic Israel.
yeah,
Could be seen that way.
yeah. When he does it second time, he does it in realm of spirit. When he does it first time, he does it in the realm of flesh, like flesh Adam. Physical earth, earthy. And the second Adam is from heaven, a life-giving spirit. It's a spirit, and this is flesh. So the patterns are also very consistent across the Bible.
But when the vessel is marred in his hand, it isn't because the potter made a mistake.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's because Israel said no, and they were stiff-necked, and they were unable to remain faithful over the course of time. And they had a critical failure built in, which was lack of faith. Only the spiritual Israel can remain faithful.
And that not on the room, but only with Christ in us.
Yeah.
Jeremiah was told to go to the Israelites and show them, do this, take the clay, take the pot, But again, this beautiful potter and clay is not at one place. I think it is spread across 3 or 4 chapters in Jeremiah. So you have to really study those chapters to extract this concept of potter and clay, to
Yeah.
learn in totality.
Yeah, it's that same section that talks about cisterns, the broken cisterns
Yeah.
that cannot hold water. And those cisterns are made out of clay.
Yeah.
So you're right, it spreads across several chapters.
In those chapters, he goes on a rabbit trail. It changes and goes into another subject and then comes back and talks few verses about this, again, potter and clay, and again goes in another tangent. Thus, the difficulty of this concept being sprinkled over several chapters. We can do some time about potter and clay, a case for spiritual Israel. Even though
Yeah.
people may not like it, but I will
Yeah,
I will present what I see, what I am convicted of in scriptures.
Mhm. Yeah.
Romans 9 talks about, it talks about Pharaoh, but then it says vessels of honor and vessels of dishonor.
Correct.
And this is with the work of the potter. There are vessels of dishonor. So yeah, you're right. The idea of the clay and the potter is a very broad, reaching, and excellent teaching tool. A damaged cistern cannot hold water.
You mentioned that, Alan, you mentioned that the marring of the potter was not because of something God was doing, but because of the problem with the people
Yeah,
in it. I was thinking of it more like the pottery, the clay that made it up could have been not proper. Something was missing with it, so that when you're working with it, it might have had a dry spot. It's sort of like when you're mixing up pancake batter and there's still some of the flour that hasn't been mixed in properly, and
yeah,
doesn't taste good unless you get it all mixed up the right way. But it's so you have like this dryness in there where they should have had more moisture in it to make the clay more malleable and to be complete.
yeah.
I'm not sure if it's any different, but just a thought. How you look at marring.
Yeah, and no matter how you look at it, it's not because God made a mistake. The marring was the stiff neck and the unwillingness to yield. I look at it more like that.
Yeah, and I think that if you think about the way God made us, He made us in that way so that we have that stubbornness and we'd have a firmness afterwards. Once we get finished, we're going to be strong. We're going to be strong in the right way, and not strong in the wrong way. Not fighting against it, but resisting the evils, resisting the pulls and the stresses of the world, and it makes us stronger.
Well, yeah, for some, ideally, yes. For some, it will be that way, but I don't believe in universal salvation. So for some, they're marred permanently. And the master can't work with the material anymore. It's not workable.
Yeah, there's the incorrigibly wicked, and
Yeah.
yeah, there's definitely that. But he does say he wants all to be saved, so it's not his desire that they do that, obviously.
No. But he doesn't take the freedom away.
There you go.
Freedom is one dangerous attribute.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah.
most dangerous
Okay,
thing.
fine.
It brings every form of evil into the world because people are free to do what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And every sorrow and every suffering is due to the freedom of men to do wickedly,
Mm-hmm.
to choose to do wickedly.
There you go. Well, I think I'm gonna call it a night.
Okay, I think
All right.
I am also ready to wrap it up. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for your
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
night all.
Good
So
night.
stopping the recording.
Bye. Thank you, Tigo.